Hello everyone. Welcome to our live stream. Before we actually get into anything, let me know if you can see my screen all right and hear me right. I'm really excited to run this stream. It has been a while since I did live stream, so I'm kind of nervous and I'm also not really sure if my setup is all good. So do let me know in the chat if the audio is clear as well as the video is clear. All right, people are saying yes, we can hear and see you all good. That is all I need to know. As you can see on the screen, I have put a preview of what we are trying to achieve today. And this is a Power BI masterclass. In this kind of next 70-60 minutes, we'll try to get a good grasp on Power BI by loading some data, building a interactive report like this. This is a fully interactive report for a made up clinic called Awesome Clinic. And I'll explain the process. I'll talk about how we can load the data, how we can apply some cleanup steps on it, how we can do some data modeling, calculate various business or clinical stuff related to this, and build a report. Now don't worry, even if you don't work in a clinic or anything, I assume majority of you are not really working in hospital or healthcare setup. It doesn't really matter. The main focus area will be Power BI, but I will explain anything that needed from a business point of view as we go along. Now, before we jump into all of that, I want to remind you that there is a sample file that goes along with this video. So in case you want to follow along, feel free to grab the file. I have put it in the video description. You can see that when you look at the video description on YouTube. The link is rather long, so I don't want to spell it out, but it is on my GitHub page and you can grab the file. So once again, thank you so much. It's so good to see you, many of you, on this Valentine's Day. I hope you started your day nicely and you got some token of appreciation or love or whatever for the significant others in your life. Yeah, it's good to see you all. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the chat where you're watching from and what are you having. I just had my lunch and I got myself a glass of water so that in case my throat feels dry, I can take sips of it as I'm talking. And I'm really excited to meet you all live like this. So just say hello, and if you have any where you're watching this from, let me know. I'm gonna try and see. All right, we have some people. Someone from Visakhapatnam, Ohio, USA, Atlanta, somebody from UK. It must be like middle of the night for you. I really apologize for those of you who are watching from very weird time zones. Kolkata, Hamilton, New Zealand, Sweden, Pakistan, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Texas, Coffs Harbour, Australia, Nigeria. Wow, we have quite a bit of worldwide audience for this session, and thank you so much again for taking time to attend and share your passion, share your enthusiasm to learn. Now, as the stream goes along, if you do have any questions, leave them in the chat. I won't be looking at the questions immediately because the focus for the main show part is to kind of stick to the agenda and get from point A, which is blank Power BI workbook, all the way until somewhat this kind of a report that I'm showing you on the screen. So that's the goal. And as as I'm trying to do everything myself, I want to focus on building. But if you do have questions, leave them in the chat. That way, other people who are also watching, they can help you out, and at the end of the session I'll go through the questions and I'll help. So the agenda for today is really simple. We are gonna talk about how to get this data into Power BI, and then how to model it, how to clean it, and how to build a report. That should take maybe 60-65 minutes. We may not be able to get to everything, but I'm not really worried about that. The goal is to kind of help you in that direction and share some of the things that I'm learning recently about Power BI. And then we'll do a question and answer session for next 20-25 minutes, and then I'll leave you to your rest of the Valentine's Day or the weekend plans, whatever you may have. So thanks once again, and let's get started. I want to again remind you that there is a sample file, so if you want to follow along, which is a great way to learn, especially if you're learning Power BI, you can grab the file. Alternatively, if you do know Power BI a little bit and you have your own data sets, you can just watch it, take some notes or make some pointers, and then go back and apply them to your data sets. I'll show you where the sample file is, so that so it's on my GitHub page. If you click on the link, it should take you to something that looks like this, and you would want to click on this link to grab the blank file. The blank file is self-contained, so there is no problems for refresh or anything. If you refresh the file, it will just still work, nothing gets broken. All the data is contained in that file. But I'll share a completed version of the Power BI workbook. Once we finish, I'll put another link in the video description that will give you access to this file. So on that note, I'll show you what the blank file looks like, and then we'll build everything from there. So I'm gonna save this. This is the demo file, and then I'm gonna open the blank report. So I'm using I think the January 2026 version of Power BI. Power BI does change every month, so if you're using a different version of Power BI, you may have slightly different screens, but hopefully you should be able to follow along nicely. So the blank report has both dark and light versions of the report, depending on like templates. Basically, these are all pre-filled charts. So that you don't have to waste time formatting. You can kind of copy paste it and change things. So I thought it'll be nice to start from some sort of pre-done work rather than from blank. But that's like completely blank page from where we are gonna actually build. Initially I wanted to go in the dark theme, but the more I started working, I enjoyed the light colored thing. So I'm gonna make the report in the light colored scheme, but we can do either, it's all same. So I'm gonna go to this blank page, and I'm gonna rename this as clinic report, and this is where we will build it. But before we build it, I must tell you what this data is, right? So I'm gonna quickly explain the setting for this particular Power BI report. Imagine you work in the data team or the administration or management team of a hospital. So now you have access to lots of data related to the various activities that happen in a hospital. You have data about patients, doctors, and various appointments and tests and all of that. So we're kind of looking at a subset of that data, and we're trying to build some sort of a not too basic but also not too advanced kind of a report, just to understand how things are happening. For the purpose of this analysis, we have access to the data for the months of December 2025 and January 2026. So 2 months worth of data is what we have. So the data is all self-contained in this. I'll show you how the data looks. There's basically 3 tables in the data. So here we have the calendar table. We'll come to this in a minute. Patients table and doctors table. So these are the 2 main tables. Patients table tells us who our patients are in these last 2 months, and doctors table tells us about all the doctors that work in our clinic, and the calendar table is just so we could do some date related stuff. So I'll come back to calendar in a minute, but let's just take a closer look at the patients table. This is how that is. The data, even though it is self-contained, it actually comes from some sort of a SQL or cloud system. You can imagine like that. But for now, everything is already in Power BI. Okay, so the way this is I'll see if I can zoom this. Okay, yeah, we can zoom this. So I'll show you a single record. For example, here is a single record. This is for a specific patient 352. Their date of birth is 27th of January 1970, male gender, and they live in the postcode 1051. They're not referred by any particular hospital to us. They just came to our hospital directly. So none is the referral. Their in date, the date on which they came to the hospital, is 28th of January, and their out date is also 28th of January. So they're not an inpatient. They didn't spend the night with us or anything. They just came in, went out. Whereas this particular patient here, you can see they came in on 2nd of December and they went on 3rd of December. So they spent a night in the hospital. So some procedures require patient stay with us. So we have got in date and out date that tell us a little bit more about their particular visit to the hospital. And we also have the doctor ID column that tells us who is the doctor that attended to them, and a follow-up column. Some patients will be asked to do a follow-up visit. Right now all of these have 0, but somewhere down you might have some patients do have 1 for follow-up, which means they're asked to come back for a follow-up checkup or another visit down the line. All right. So this is how that data is. We have about 4,200 records in this data set. And in the doctors table, we have 35 doctors. So all of their names and IDs are there, and the department in which they work. We essentially have 6 departments: cardiology, orthopedics, neurology, etc., etc. And their profile pictures are also available if you want to see their face in the report. So we have got SVG image and PNG image in the thing. And like I said, calendar is a standard part of Power BI reports or any kind of business intelligence reports. You will have a calendar table where each row is 1 day. So all the 62 days of December and January 2026, so 31 days in December, 31 in Jan, each row will be 1 day here. And some additional stuff like what is the month number, name, short name, day of week, name of that quarter, etc. And is it a weekend or weekday? All of that information is there in the calendar table. So this is helpful if you want to, for example, use this to ask questions like how are things in the week 1 of a month or anything like that. You can use the calendar table to do that kind of analysis. So these are the 3 tables that we will use. Normally in most business intelligence reporting, even if you take something like hospitals or healthcare data sets, there will be dozens of tables, like 50 tables or 100 tables, and it does get overwhelming even at this stage just to get the data. So for the sake of simplicity, I have kind of narrowed down this to just 2 main tables: doctors and patients, and the calendar table for some associated analysis. So 3 tables, and I have also brought down the data just to 2 months, 4,000 records, and just kept whatever few columns we can deal with in the limited amount of time this live stream can go on. But like I said, this is just starting point. Once you feel comfortable with these concepts, I would imagine, having more tables or more complicated business problems to tackle on would be the next logical step. So that's a little bit about the data. Now let's talk about how these 3 tables connect. So I'll show you the data model. This is basically a simplified model. All of this is already set up in the blank file for you, by the way. Normally the very first steps that we would do is get the data into Power BI, but because this is a live stream, and I want to maximize the time that we spend inside Power BI rather than dealing with where is the file, how do I bring it, and all of that, those additional steps. So I kind of shortcutted those things. I assume you know how to load the data, but if not, don't worry too much. There's other videos on my channel as well as on YouTube that talk about how to bring data into Power BI and how to set up tables and all of that. So that part is not that complicated in my opinion. Yeah, anyhow, doctor's table and patient table, these two tables are linked up. You can see that there's a line that connects these two, and if I select the line, you can see that doctor IDs light up on both tables. So a doctor ID in the doctor table is connected to the doctor ID in the patient's table, and the kind of relationship is one to many. That means a single doctor here can attend multiple patients there. So that's one to many relationship from there, and then the arrow is also pointing this way. This is the arrow that I'm talking about, which means if I were to filter the doctor table, for example, if I select a specific department, the filters will propagate to the patient's table and also show me only the patients and their related stuff in the patient's data. That's what that arrow indicates. Again, if you don't understand what that means, you don't have to worry right now. We will talk about that a little later as I'm building that report. The calendar table is a little bit trickier in this scenario, but again, it's not that complicated. Essentially, calendar table has two lines going to patient's table, and that's because we don't have a single date. We have actually three dates. Date of birth is there, in date is there, and out date is there. Now for date of birth, we are not really doing anything, so I'm ignoring this for the moment. Normally you would have a connection from date of birth also going to calendar or some other kind of thing if you want to do some very complicated analysis based on the date of birth of patients. But for now, we are not doing anything with that, so we'll ignore that for a minute, and we'll focus on these in date and out date. So we have two kinds of dates. In date is when the patient came into the hospital, and out date is when they left the hospital. For the purpose of most of this analysis, we will focus on in date. We are not even worried about out date in this today's session, but I have connected both of them. So both of these dates, if you select this line, you'll see that the date here is hooked up to in date, and if I select that line, again the date here is hooked up to out date. So both of the dates are connected to the same date concept in my calendar table. Now, while Power BI does allow you to connect multiple columns to a same column in another table like this, so essentially this date here has a one-to-many relationship with both in and out, it doesn't like to keep all of those relationships active. Just as, you know, in the spirit of Valentine's Day, maybe I'll make a silly dad joke. In the spirit of Valentine's Day, it's a good idea to have just one active relationship at a time. So Power BI also is like that. It doesn't like having multiple relationships active. So one of the lines is like a solid line, this line, and the other one is a dotted line, indicating that it's an inactive relationship. It is there, but it's not no longer active. It is there. So outdate relationship is inactive right now in my model, which means I won't be able to perform any analysis based on the out date of the patient. But we have kept the line there, the connection there, so that should we change our mind, we can use out date to figure out some other things. All right. So that's why those two things are there. For the purpose of today's session, I'm not really doing anything with out date. But we will hopefully revisit this data model in a subsequent live or another video on the channel, where I'll talk about, you know, those other dates and more complicated problems that might arise because of these kind of things and how to analyze them and all of that. So this is our data model, these three tables. Now, for some very weird reason, let's say you don't have that line, I deleted that line. So how do I connect this and that? This is really simple. You can just click on this, drag and drop it onto the other doctor ID there. So this is how you connect things in Power BI. There's other ways also doing this, and once you connect it, it'll ask you, how do you want? I want this to go there. It's a one-to-many and this relationship will be active. You don't need to check this, it will be automatically active, and then that's basically connected. So this is our data model. Again, we are in this part of the screen. So if you click on that, it will show you the data model. Whereas if you see this, you can see the data, and then if you go back here, you're now in the report building area of Power BI. Okay, so that basically sets the foundation for our clinical report. Now let's put on the hat of a hospital administrator or hospital chief and ask some business questions and answer them through Power BI, and along we'll learn how to kind of get to the answers from your data. So on that note, we will use this blank page clinic report to build that report, but along way, if we need to learn a little bit, I'll add another page and I'll explain those things there, and I'll come back. Also, for the sake of maximizing the screen real estate, I'm going to turn off my face. I'm still here. It's just that I find if my face is taking a significant chunk of the screen, then you won't be able to see everything that I'm doing with my mouse. So nope, that's the okay. So here we are. That's Power BI, and I'm just going to quickly read through the chat to make sure that there's nothing. Yeah. Okay. So our first thing is we want to kind of look at the tables and see if there is any missing pieces that we need to address. So all the three tables are there, everything is there, but depending on the business questions that you may ask, sometimes you may have to add things to the tables as well. Right now I don't see anything because we have no idea what questions we are going to ask. So I'll go back here. I'm going to open a notepad. And inside this notepad, I'm just going to write some things, some focus items for us, so we can ask these questions and address them through our Power BI report, and along we'll learn Power BI. So the questions that I want to ask is, remember this is 2 months worth of data, so it's not like we have entire history of our hospital and all the procedures and everything that happened there. It's just 2 months for a specific hospital. So I will ask simple questions like, how many patients we had in this period, what is their trend, did we have like same number of patients every day, or did we have a spike on New Year or some other day? What happened, like how does this trend look like, right? And then maybe understand who are our patients. At a very simple level, maybe some sort of a gender breakdown of their patients, like how many male versus female versus missing or other gender values, whatever is there. I want to see that picture. Age grouping of our patients by ages, like are we getting patients who are like 70-year-olds, 10-year-olds? What is happening? How does that look like? Age grouping, and maybe if I want, I'm not gonna attempt everything, but if I want, I can also see where they live, because we have the postcode, right? I can maybe take the postcode and plug it in somewhere and then kind of see graphically where our patients are coming in from, and who is referring these patients to us. Are they coming in by themselves? Are they being referred to by Hamilton or Napier or Wellington or any of the other hospitals in our circuit? So all of these names are New Zealand cities, by the way, but it doesn't really matter. Who are our patients? What is their trend? How many patients we had? Who are they? And then maybe at a department level, we have multiple departments. I want to understand how busy are the departments. And at a doctor's level, again the same question, how busy are the doctors? Are there some doctors who are getting multiple patients per day and some doctors who are just getting like 1-2 patients? Is the workload balance? This is like a question that I want to understand. if I am a hospital administrator. And so far we are looking at patient level, but maybe we may want to also understand things like in versus outpatients. An inpatient is anybody uh, who didn't leave the hospital on that same day. So they came in on 28th of December and then they left on 1st of January. Now they are inpatient, whereas an outpatient would be someone who just came in and went on the same day. So yeah, in versus outpatients, how is that looking like? And what percentage of patients are asked to follow up? Some of these questions I want to answer, and along way, uncover some insights about data and maybe do some things. I'll show you the final version because rather than trying to go in random directions, I thought I'll make something up front so that I know which way I'm going and also guide you. So this is the kind of picture that we want to build that tries to answer some of these questions. You can see referral percentage, inpatient percentage, gender breakdown, age breakdown, departments, by each doctor, how many patients they had, and what is their daily average patients. DAP stands for that, total patients average, and total bed nights, like 4K patients, but all in all only 2000 odd bed nights in our hospital during the 2 month. And what is the trend in the last 2 weeks? So that's really what we want to do, right? So these are some of the questions. Again, you may feel free to ask other questions because I've provided the data to you, and once you have some ideas about Power BI and how to do things, you can easily ask any question and then start figuring out how to answer. And if you get stuck, use resources like YouTube or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever is your fancy way of learning these days. Just use that and figure it out. That's basically how you can learn quickly and efficiently with these kind of tools. All right, so what I'll do is, first up, like I said, I set up both dark and light mode, but I really like this light color one. So I'm going to duplicate this, right click on this and duplicate, and this will be our report. Actually, I'm just going to delete this guy. And clinic report, and let's just delete all of these things and we'll make our report here so that it's easy to see. Sometimes I like the dark one, but this one I'm just going to try the light colored one. So in order to answer some of these questions, I'll bring these questions again to the screen so we stay on thing, like how many patients we had in this period. This is something very simple to answer. We know that each patient that visited would have a record in the patient's table. So all I have to do is go to the patient's table and count how many rows are there, because each row is a single patient. I can just count and that'll give me the patient thing. We can do the same with trend as well. Like once the count is there, I can just visualize that by date and then we'll see the trend. But some of these things we won't be able to answer directly given the data. We don't have the age grouping because we don't even know how old our patients are. We only know their date of birth. So we have to figure out what their age is and then work it out. So this is a thing. And then in versus outpatients, we don't really know whether somebody is an inpatient or an outpatient. We only know what is their in date and out date, and we have to derive that from there. So some of these will require crossing a bridge, whereas others can be straight away answered. So we'll start with this simple one: how many patients we had in this period. And to answer something like that, we want to go to this table and see how many records it has, because each row is one patient. So this kind of a calculation it can be done in multiple ways in Power BI, but the most recommended and the best way of doing this is to use a feature called measures. So measures is the basic calculation engine of Power BI. I'll show my face once so I can emphasize this. So think Power BI like this fancy sports car. I like to go with this analogy for most of the people when I explain Power BI. So if you think Power BI as this Ferrari or Lamborghini or one of these whatever fancy car that you imagine, or even a tractor. Now, while the car is what you want, it can't function without an engine. The engine is really what is driving the whole thing. So the engine part of Power BI is the calculation mechanism or calculation engine. And all of these calculations happen in the engine that is called Power Pivot. That's the name of the engine. And we are actually going to ask that engine, we are going to go to that engine and then ask it, hey, can you do this for us? Can you go to this table and count these number of rows? So the language that you need to speak when you talk to this engine is called DAX, Data Analysis Expressions, DAX. So that's the language that we will use. It kind of looks like Excel formulas, but it is derived from the same kind of syntax, but it has a different meaning and all of that. And by no way this particular live stream is meant to be like a DAX class. It is more like an introduction to DAX, just scratching the surfaces, but hopefully make you curious about that. Oh, I can do this, I can do that, and then put you on a path where you can learn the language. Because in order to analyze the data and answer questions about your business, you do require the skill of DAX. You don't need to be super proficient in it, given how easy it is to learn these days with the help of AI, but you do need the fundamentals. Once you know the fundamentals, everything else you can figure it out with help of AI or courses or whatever is your fancy way of learning. There's plenty of videos on my channel as well, and even live streams where I talked about DAX extensively. So watch them later, but today I will introduce a little bit of DAX. So we go back here. Our first question is how many patients we had, and that's basically counting the rows in this table. So we are going to right click on that table and use the feature new measure to create our first calculation for DAX. This is going to open a formula bar up top here. This is where you write the measure equal to what. That's basically what Power BI asks you. I'm going to zoom this up a little bit. You can hold down control and mouse scroll wheel to increase the font size here. And this is patient count is equal to number of rows in the patient's table. So that's the count rows function, count rows of patient's table. You can use the auto suggest to fill down table names and function names like that. And that's pretty much it. One is the line number, patient count is the name of the measure, equal to, that's the calculation. So we add that. Now how do I see that? I have added that its patient count is sitting here. How do I see it? When you see things, you have to see it in the context of something. So here the context is, right now I want to see maybe patient count by each of our departments. So where is department? It's in the doctor's table. So here is the department. So we start by exploring the department and patient count together by means of a visual. So you would want to see the build panel. Sometimes what happens is these things get collapsed and they will not be there, and you might think, okay, well, where do I click? So you can usually click on these things on the side. Most of what you need to use will be on the side. So the data will be here, and build will also be there. Build is what we use to build visuals. So here is all the visuals. Let's see how many patients we had for each department through, let's go with the bar chart. That's the very first one. So we'll add a bar chart. It'll come up here. I'm going to make this nice and big. And in this bar chart, I will add department to y-axis. Y is this axis and x is this axis. So each department will go here. Each bar will be one department. And on x-axis, that's the value that we are trying to see, will be my patient count. So patient count goes there and department count comes here. So drag and drop these things there, and we will get this nice graph like that. Now it looks in the dark color because I've set up everything to be in the dark color, but halfway through the process I decided we're going to go with light color. So that's why this is in dark color. We'll worry about the colors later, but for now you can see neurology has 784 patients, general physicians have 780, whereas internal medicine has 360. So this is fairly self-explanatory, but internally what is happening is for each department the patient count is being calculated by using that logic, count rows of patients. Now if you look at this, the count rows of patients in this, we are not talking about how to do this for a specific department or anything. Instead, what we are saying is, we are saying that's the logic, just use count rows of patients. But when you make a visual or you make a report or you make anything in that context, so here the context is neurology, for that particular context, for that department, it's gonna calculate the number of patients, number of rows in the patient's table by figuring it out. All the things will happen by will automatically work out by that car engine thing that I'm talking about. So engine is smart enough, the power pivot, it's smart enough to know, oh, you're only interested in neurology, I'm gonna do the necessary filtering and make sure that I only show you these things. So this is that. How does this work? You might think, okay, this is fine, it is working, but a part of you might be wondering, same formula but gives me different results. How is this happening? Why the number is changing everywhere? So what happens is, behind scenes, as the number is getting calculated, Power BI uses a context logic. The context is determined by what you're doing. Right now what we are doing is neurology. So neurology is 784. This number, how is it coming up? The step one is, it all begins from background here. This is where this thing is important. So here is the department, here is the patient count. This and that is what we're trying to figure out. So department becomes neurology. So what happens is, doctor's table first gets filtered down to just all the doctors that work in neurology. So maybe 5 doctors, 6 doctors. So out of 35, it now becomes 6 doctors. Once this is filtered, remember this arrow? This arrow says, if this is filtered, take the filter and bring it here. This is called propagation, filter propagation. So the neurology here follows that line and comes here, and then for all of my patients, all the 4,200 would suddenly become 784, because the big table is now shrinking just so that it corresponds to neurology patients. At that point in time, the patient table doesn't have 4,000 records, it has only 784 records. So when the count rows then runs, it simply says 784 because it's not seeing anything else. That is why this line is important. Imagine if that line is not there. I'm going to delete that line. So now this table and this is not connected. Go back here. You'll see that suddenly every department has the same patient count and all of them have the same 4,207 patients. I'll point the mouse on that, you can see 4207. Because when in this context, for example, if I'm looking at neurology again, it says neurology, but the patient count, because there is no line that goes from the doctor's table to the patient's table, it has no idea. It has no idea how to take this neurology information and then propagate it to the patient's table and then calculate. So this is why the very first thing before you can do any calculations is always modeling, taking all the business concepts and making sure that the right connections are in the right place and propagation is set up in the correct direction. So it's going from here to there. Only then you'll get the correct answers. So it's very important. This is a kind of a thing that is somewhat different from other kinds of work that you may do, but because many people they come from some other system to Power BI, it's important to understand this particular distinction. And I made the same mistake, and I want you to be aware of this. Okay, so we answered a part of that question, which is how many patients we had in this period, and we can see that that's how that looks at a department level. But I could take the same and answer this in a different level, like for example, how many patients we have by gender. So if I have a like a donut chart, In this donut, I want to see my patient's gender as a legend and patient count as a value. I can see the same 4,000 broken into male, female, and oh, what is this? Null. Some patients have missing gender value. Now, null might be a valid value from a database perspective, but when you're reporting, seeing nulls, it kind of looks odd. So maybe calling them as unknown or something else would be a better idea. So we'll deal with that in a minute, but that's the thing. Now that these two things are there, let's kind of understand one of the coolest features of Power BI. And that is, Power BI is fully interactive. So see what happens if I click on, for example, the male chunk of this graph. If I just click on that, automatically this graph gets filtered and it shows me how these 2,000 odd male patients are spread across departments. So you can see the departmental spread. Same for female. If I click on the female, I can see, for example, for male, neurology is the higher department, but if I go to female, general physician is the higher department. You can see 348 patients, female gender, are visiting GPs, whereas 329 in neurology. So this is called interactions. Power BI visuals are interactive, and the interactions go both ways. So I can select neurology here and I can see the corresponding chunk there as well. And to unselect, you just click on something to select, and to unselect, click on that again and kind of unselects that. Okay, so now that these two things are there, let's go back and fix some of the issues with our data. So one of them is this null. I think null is a good idea, but in a reporting world, you should not be calling null. It should be something like missing or unknown or something, so that it reads better in a reporting sense. Likewise, for some of these other things like age grouping and in versus out patients, we do need to add some extra things to the data. So we're gonna quickly jump into another part of Power BI. So data is already there, but I'm realizing my data is lacking some things. So how do we fix that? This is where there is a big button in the home ribbon called transform data. So if you tap on that, you can go into an area of Power BI where I can add things to the data. So I'm going to click on transform data, and that takes me to this area called Power Query. Now this looks a bit confusing because of the way I have designed this sample file. Normally it doesn't look as confusing. For the purpose of this particular sample file, I had to put some extra things there. So I recommend that you ignore, on the right hand side, you'll see a lot. You ignore anything here. You just look at these three. These are the main things. So it's in the folder called self-contained. Just look at them. Everything else you can ignore for now. Those are a little bit advanced concepts. You need not worry about them in this particular session. So patients, calendar, and doctor. These are the three tables, and I'm gonna go into the patients and we are gonna add a few things there. So first up, we'll fix the gender problem and then we'll go from there. Some of you might be seeing Power Query also for the first time, just as you might be seeing Power BI for the first time. My suggestion is, again, take some notes for now rather than feeling overwhelmed. See what I'm doing. Try to connect the dots with something else that you have done elsewhere in your work as a data analyst or a professional. You may have done something similar in Excel, SQL, or Python, or something else altogether. So try to connect the dots there, but leave it. And then once you're ready, once you have some mental capacity, you can learn Power Query on its own, and then it all starts to make sense. So that's again my advice. See it for now and then understand what we're trying to do. So we have a problem with the gender column. We see that some of them have nulls. So I'm going to pick the gender column. You can see that if I expand here, the null is showing up there. So what I want is, null is fine from a report data point of view, but for the report, it should not be null, it should be something interesting. So I'm going to right click on that and use the replace values option and replace null with unk, a short for unknown. That's it. So now my gender values will be female, male, other, unknown. Okay, so this is all right. And while we are there, we also want to figure out what is the kind of patients we had. We have in date and out date. Anybody whose in date is not same as out date, they're basically, they've stayed a day or two with us, they should be inpatient. So we want to use this and calculate the number of days they are with us. The number of days they are with us would be this minus that. In most cases there will be 0, but in some cases like here, 1st of January they left, 31st of December they came in, so they spent a day with us. So you're going to select out date and in date. You can select out date, hold down shift and select in date. That way you grab both of these and go to add column, and we want to add a column that tells me how many days they have been with us, so the difference between this and that. So add column, and from there date, subtract days. This is gonna give you a subtraction. You can see that it will be zeros, ones and twos, and maybe a random 3 somewhere. So most patients are in outpatients, they come in and go on the same day, but a few do spend the night with us. So it will be called subtraction. I'm going to double click on the column name and rename this as total days. Okay, so that's that. And then based on this, I want to categorize the patients as inpatient or outpatient. An inpatient would have 1, 2 or something, and outpatient will have 0. So we'll use this column to determine that. So again, we will add one more column. For that, we'll use the add column, and this is basically a logical check, right? Is this 0? 0 means OP. Anything non-zero is IP. So select this and then use the add column, conditional column, and this is how you can build conditions basically. So here I can say patient type, if total days equals 0, you are an outpatient, else you're an inpatient. That's it. We'll have our tagging for all the patients done, inpatient, outpatient, like that. While we are here, let's calculate the age of our patients. We have the date of birth, so I'll select the date of birth column and stay in the add column screen. Again, date, and the very first option is age. So if you select a date, you can calculate the age. So we'll do age and it will add the age. The thing with age is it comes up in days. So this patient is 24,444 days old. This patient is 15,730 days old. Now this is ridiculous. We can't do anything with that kind of age. So I'm going to turn this into years. So while keeping the age selected, we're going to go into the transform ribbon. Add column adds columns, whereas transform changes things in place. So we'll go to the transform and click on this duration and calculate the total years from the duration that we have. So you can now see the age is 60, 6.96, 45, 53, 31, like that. This is too precise, I think. From a reporting point of view, we don't need this level of detail. You can keep it, but I feel like this is not needed. So I'm going to round it. So while keeping this selected in the transform, you will have rounding. I'm just going to round this to 0 decimal places. You may also want to round down or round up, depending on what you're trying to do. For me, this works. I'm just going to use that, and we'll round it to the nearest integer value. So far, so good. So we have got patients, age calculated, type calculated, total number of days calculated, and we don't need anything in the calendar or doctor's table. Those are all fairly straightforward. And then when you're done, you can go to the home ribbon, and there will be a button called close and apply. That basically applies these changes to the data. So I'm going to close and apply. And this will show a loading screen and will flicker the screen, and it will show you these extra fields. You can see total days, patient type, patient age. All of these things are now added for us, so we could do the analysis. All right, how is everyone doing? All right, so far let's take a stock of what we have done. We have the data here. We made our very first measure, the patient count, and then we made some visuals to see the patient count at a department and gender level, and then we added some extra columns because we realized, oh, in order to do these A, B, C, I need these extra columns. So we went to the Power Query, put that. So now let's come back and calculate a few more things that will help us answer these business questions. So I'll show you the themes again. We have that. We could kind of see this already. We didn't see it. We know this. We are now going to attempt that. Where they live, I think that one I'm not going to do anything. This one also, I'll leave it for you because they're all kind of similar questions. So once you know how to do one, the other one becomes easy. So I'm not going to do that. But we'll look at that, and we'll look at these ones. These are more interesting. So we'll go there, and then we'll come back and try to do the others. So we have the patient count. We are seeing that these numbers at an individual level, like at a department or a gender level. But wouldn't it be cool if there's like a big number right here? We had 4,207 patients in the 2 months, or something like that. Because when a hospital administrator is looking at this report, he or she, they may want to know some high level details first before going into detail like this. This is normally how reporting is done. You'll set the context, you'll provide some high level stuff, and then provide the details so that the number is explained. Nowhere here we can know what is the overall patient count. We know how much is neurology or how much is internal medicine, but we don't know that we had 4,000 patients in the 2 months. So that's a good idea to set that first. So those kind of visuals are called cards. So I'm going to add a card. I'll put that card up there, size it, and in this card I'm going to put my patient count, and we can see that it says 4K patient count. So that's the patient count. It usually rounds it to thousands or millions depending on how the numbers are. That's the behavior for cards. But if you want, you can ask it to show more precisely by customizing the format options. We'll worry about that for later, but for now we'll use this card to see some of the other numbers in our hospital that matter. So we have 4K patients. I want to know what is the total number of bed nights that we had. This would be total days column added up. So we'll right click again, new measure, and we'll call this as bed nights is equal to sum of total days. So sum of the patients table total days column would be my bed nights. So I can add a measure like that, and I'll put that, and we'll select this, and if I add that there, you can directly add it by dragging and dropping, or you can also select this, and you see these check boxes next to everything. You can check on that. Whatever you check will be added to the visual. So if I check that, the bed nights will be added here. So I can see 2K bed nights. And these are all interactive. Like if I select psychiatry, I can see 640 patients, 253 of them spent the night. General physician or orthopedics or internal medicine, whatever I want, I can select that. A more interesting thing to calculate would be what is the, we'll do two things. First one is what is the average age of our patient, right? How old are our patients? So for that we could use the average. So I can say average age is average of age column, right? Something like that. And again, check that. On average, our patients are 46.71 years old. And if I select any of them, I can see the variation. So for example, internal medicine patients are a little bit older, neurology are also older, oncology is this. And if I select male or female or other, I can see what's happening there. So that's the average age. But a more interesting and probably a little trickier one to calculate is what is the average number of patients we had on each of the days. So that means in the data, if you look at my calendar, we operated 62 days. So this is Monday 1st of December to Saturday 31st of January 2026, so all the 62 days. And over the course of 62 days, we had 4,207 patients. So the number that I'm really interested in is the 4207 divided by 62. So total patients, that's this number, divided by total number of days. That would be the number of days count either in calendar table, or a much better way of calculating this would be the in date values there. These are all a little bit more trickier to understand the very first time you do it, simply because some of these do require understanding how Power BI works, especially the Power Pivot and the DAX work, and then figuring out the correct way of solving the problem. But for now, we'll just use that line there, see how many days are in the calendar, divide that with the total number. So for that, we need to know how many days we're talking about. So we're going to go into calendar, right click and new measure there, and then we're going to call this as number of days. And this is nothing but each row in calendar is a day, so count rows of calendar. You can see that will be 62 there. And so we have 62, we have 4,000, we can just divide one with another. So we'll make one more measure. DAP, daily average patients, is nothing but this number divided by that number. So we already have measures for that, patient count and number of days. So we just use those things. We open square bracket, we can say patient count divide sign number of days. So we'll see that as every day we had 67.85 patients. That's the daily average patient count. And I'll show you, for example, this is how many patients each department had in total. I want to see what is the average, what is the daily average for each of the departments, which departments are busier on a daily level, because that would be more interesting to know. So I can take out the patient count and put that. There's a few ways to do that. You can click on the X to take that out, and then you can put DAP there, and then you can see that. Obviously, the same thing will be maintained because all of them have operated for 62 days, and all numbers divided with 62, the ordering remains. But you can again use this to kind of see a little bit more, and you can do the same analysis at a doctor level, and then, for example, see which doctors had more daily average patients. There's a more technical and probably the correct way of calculating DAP by not using calendar table and using just the in date values here or out date values here, and then going from there, or using a more complicated way of combining these two. But I won't go there now, and instead we'll focus more on what is our inpatient percentage, how many what percentage of patients are inpatients in our clinic. So for that, we will again make a measure. We'll do it in two steps. One is inpatient count. This is basically how many patients are inpatient. That means what I want is I want to take the patient count, and then I want to count out of these 4,000 how many patients had patient type as inpatient. Remember, we added patient type a few minutes ago. So we want to use that and kind of slice this number just for that. This is where a powerful function in Power BI, Power Pivot comes in, calculate function. What this does is it can take anything that you already have, so or something like patient count, and then calculate it with an extra context or changing the context for you. So here the context that we want to add is patient count, and I want to say patient type, patient type is inpatient. Some of this help comes in the way. So that's the formula. We want to calculate patient count by adding that extra layer of context. So that's what that is doing. Again, I apologize for not explaining too much into this, simply because these are a little bit too technical depending on where you are in your Power BI journey. But I want you to think earlier when we tried to understand what happened at a department level, how the patient count got calculated with the help of this line. And then I said the neurology as a context is taken, first applied at a doctor's table, filtered down just to the doctors of neurology, and then the filter got propagated into patient's table, then patient's table shrunk to 784, and then it's just counting that many rows. So there we used the word context, and the context was just neurology. Whereas with, I'm going to add I'll take out this thing and then we'll add the inpatient count. So you can see 4K, 1K is the inpatient count. So in order to calculate this, it's also calculating patient count. So in a way, the same 4,200 rows are used, but it is further shrinking just to inpatient by us adding that context. So earlier the context is coming in from the screen says neurology, so it's getting filtered at that, whereas now our formula is saying inpatient, so we are forcing that kind of an extra context into that calculation. So that comes up there, and again, needless to say, all of these work beautifully when you interact as well. So now we have two numbers. We have this number, we have that number. We can calculate a percentage that would be this as against that. So that is the real number that we want. We will call this as IP percentage, and this is inpatient count divided by patient count. Now when you are dividing things, it's a good practice to not do this kind of a hard divide. Instead, Power BI, Power Pivot, or DAX really provides a safe divide function. What it does is it will do the division, but if there is a divide by zero error for whatever reason, then it will just blank out rather than throwing an error on the screen and making everything go haywire. So we use the divide function. It's the same thing. You have numerator and denominator, and we add that, and let's see that. Let's see the inpatient percentage. On this card, you can only show 5 at a time, so you'll have a scroll bar, but you can see that it is 0.32, so 32% inpatient, and I can kind of go into any department or any gender and then understand how that really looks. This looks all right, but it should be formatted into percentage. So I'm going to select the inpatient percentage. Whenever you select any measure, Power BI activates the measure tools ribbon, and from there you can kind of change the names and home table and formats and other things. So I'm going to format using these options here and then set it to percentage. So it should be a percentage with just one decimal point, and there is my inpatient percentage. I can see more closely how things are. So that's kind of like the first step of most analysis work. When I do it in Power BI, I we bring the data, we do the modeling and tidying it up, and we perform the critical business calculations. Whatever numbers we need to calculate, we'll calculate them. Once that is done, then everything else is very easy to achieve, because all the numbers are required, like all the calculation logic and business rule is already there. So the next step is whatever I want to see. If I want to see a gender breakdown or trend or something, it's just a matter of putting the necessary graphs and formatting them and tidying them up. But that's you can format things until Christmas, or you can do them in 10 minutes if you have a presentation to do in the afternoon. So it all depends on how things like to be shown. But in order to get there, the hard work is really this: just getting the data, making sure it is clean, and making sure that you are calculating things as per the business definition and the rule. So this is really the hard part, and this is where we kind of spent our first 50 minutes. So in the next 10 minutes, maybe we'll make like a nice looking report for our hospital administrator, and along way I'll talk about how to change colors and how to adjust things. If you do have questions, leave them there. I see that some people are helping others, and I see some regulars in the chat. So yeah, be kind to them, and if there's any other questions, I'll come back to the chat panel once I finish the main part. So now that we have all the things, I mean, we could still we could still we have to calculate this, but I'm not going to do that, simply because I'm also looking at the clock and making sure that I don't really keep you on here until 6 o'clock my time. So we'll worry about that later. But for now, that one is done, and everything else is just using the data that we have to answer the question. So let's go one step at a time. This is our play area. I'll call this as clinical report play, and I'll duplicate this. This is my clinic report final version. So play is where we use this to understand. This one, I'm gonna take out these things. I'll select this. We don't need inpatient count, we just need the percentage. So I'm gonna take the thing, these are the 5 values, and I'll place them like that. That looks all right. You can use the control and mouse keys to zoom in or zoom out of things, and you can see the zoom at the bottom here. So I'm going to set this to 100% zoom. That's how that looks. First up, let's change the color. The dark color was really meant for the dark theme, whereas this is what I want. I want a light colored one, so this dark color is too dark. So we're going to go into format ribbon. Each of these ribbons to take up significant amount of real estate on the screen. So depending on how big of a screen you have or what your work setup is, you may want to collapse and expand things. For me, I don't mind keeping them on until I'm ready, and then at that point I'll collapse things to make sure it's readable and looking nice, and then I'll publish them. So we'll go into format, and I'm gonna see where the color is coming. I think there's a background color here, so I'm going to turn that off. So that's going to take out the color outside, but there's still color coming in from inside. So I'll keep this, I'll change this to that color, and then the visual border also I'll change to that color. So this point that looks like that. Now let's work on the internal color. I think that is coming in from multi-card layout. One thing that Power BI people from Microsoft have done is they must really love their mouses or clicking, the sound of clicking or whatever. I have no idea. But they've made this like incredibly clickable, like so many levels nested deep thing. So this is incredibly hard to use if you want to format and spend. You could be lost in these screens because there's like so many slide out things. There's things inside. It's always hard to find. Sometimes I search, but because I don't even know what to search for, what it is called in the screen, I could be spending hours there. All right, so that color sets that. Still there is color coming in from probably here now. So all right, okay, we can go one step darker maybe, and then we'll take out the border. So now we have to go and color the text values to make sure they are readable. So I'm gonna go dark, and let's just use Arial and bold. And labels, let's tone these down. And that looks all right. I might actually just take out the outer thing altogether because that's really not adding any value. And then okay, it does take a while. This is really why I have set up pre-formatted ones, because I hate this kind of thing. So I've formatted things the way I like. I'm going to copy this, paste it here. This is really how I want. So you could manually format it, or you can copy paste something like this, select this and use the format painter. So click format painter and tap on that so that it gets formatted quickly without you wasting time, like that. So we'll do it like that. I like a little bit of accent bar up top. It kind of invites people to look there and gets their attention, because these are important numbers. It's a good idea to ask people to read them and give proper weightage to it. And if you want, you can individually color these things so that they look better or whatever. But for now, to me, it looks all right. I'm not gonna spend too much time. Let's go ahead and see the trend. For something like trend, a line graph is perfect. So I'm gonna add a line chart. I'll show you how to make these things from scratch, because it's good to learn these things at least in the initial stages of doing. But later on, you can kind of copy paste and change things around. But it's good to know, especially if you work in a team environment and each one is doing some things. Then if you don't know how someone else has done, then you'll just waste afternoons trying to figure it out. So in the line chart, on the x-axis goes my date. So we'll add the date, and on the y-axis we'll add our patient count, and that's our patient trend. You can see that this is kind of going up and down. The data is randomly made up, but even then I can see like a downward trend towards Christmas, and then it kind of picks up and goes up and down, but that's usually the trend. And this is like an overall trend. There might be different trends at a department level or other kinds of things. So here I'll show you some quick tricks. We are not really interested in all the 60 days of trend. Maybe we want to zoom in on this bit of time, like last 3 weeks what happened, or last 2 weeks. Let's say last 3 weeks, last 21 days, how things are going in the hospital. That's my focus point. So it might be a good idea to just trim this time, but I still want to keep this context there. I don't want to change these values. They should still be for 2 months. It's just the trend we want to narrow down. So what I'll do is I'll select this and use the filter panel. So if you see there's a filter, you can expand that. From here you can apply an individual filter for this visual. So you can see that there's something called filters on this visual. I can say this visual should have some additional filters. So right now it is saying date is all. I'm gonna do this, and from basic filtering I'm gonna do advanced filtering. My color theme is actually really messed up here, so some of these colors look a bit odd, but here I can then set the criteria for the last 21 days. So I'm gonna say is on or after, and then I'll pick like 2 weeks, and then apply the filter. So we've narrowed down this. Everything else stays there, that this is narrowed down, and that's what that is. Let's quickly change these colors as well. I'm gonna go here and change the background, change the border, and go into the lines, line color, let's darken it a bit, and let's make it just 1 point so that it looks sharp. And let's add some data labels. Let's add the color there. And now what do I need? I need to change the title. Let's put the title in the darker color, make it bold. You can add just the titles and change the wordings and everything. I'm just going to take out some of these axis elements. We don't really need them. So y-axis I can take it out so that looks all right. And x-axis is not readable, so we'll create that. We don't need the title for that axis. And let's take out the grid lines also. All right, that looks better. And if you want, you can add markers and other kinds of things. There's plenty of options here. As you can clearly see, the Power BI people do love their clicks. So they have put so much thought into how to nest things 6 levels deep, just so you can spend quite a bit of time really lost in this Narnia. But that's the trend. Again, just so you don't feel frustrated, I've given you a graph here. You can copy this and format paint it, and it works. It's tastefully set up, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to do that for this. I'll just copy paste the department one. We have already built this chart, so there's no value in building it again. And I'll take out my logo. And in this, I'm going to take this one out and put our patient count. And it looks all right. So I'll just see my notes to make sure, okay, we are doing this. It would be a good to just see kind of trend as well. So to do that, you can select this and you can go down and you can see there is a trend line option here. If you enable that, it'll add a trend line, and you can format this. You can just say, okay, show me the trend line, just make it 1 pixel and scale it by width, and it'll just show it. In the last 3 weeks, we are trending downwards in a number of patients. Again, that provides a context of how things are, and you can see what happens for a department like psychiatry. It kind of goes up. Cardiology is also going up. Orthopedics is going, kind of saying, internal medicine is inching slowly upwards. Neurology is kind of staying same. So that's that, and we can add. I think we have, okay, we'll add this. We can add a gender breakdown, and in this I'm gonna see our patients gender as a legend and patient count. I'm not going to change the colors for this because color changing is just a routine task really, so there's not much value in repeating the steps. But that's that. How about patient age distribution? Again, we can use some sort of a chart like column chart for that, and you can put age on x-axis and patient count on y-axis, and then you can see the distribution of ages. So we get more patients, the older they are, the number of patients increases, but it kind of drops off after 55, 60. This is not same as the population mix. It's just our patients are in this age group. I think the older patients go to some other specialty clinics or something. So this is how that looks. But if this is too detailed, because it is at each year we have got one column, sometimes we want to see that at 5-year buckets or something, because this level of detail is probably not needed for this, or it all depends like what your real goal is. So if you don't want to see this level of detail, you can also ask Power BI to create ad hoc grouping for you. So to do that, you can right click on the age, and then you can say new group, and you can say age bins. You can give it a name. I'm not going to name it. and you can say what is the size. I want to bin every 5 years in one group, so bin size would be 5, and click OK, and that will add a binning column. Instead of age, you'll have bins, and I'm gonna select this, take out the age, and put the bins instead. So we'll get a little bit different kind of a graph that shows me that. Here we are going to see our doctor's information. I'm going to just size these things so that there's space for our doctor visuals. I want to see at a doctor level all our doctors, and then how many patients they had, what is their daily average patients, and what is their inpatient percentage. For that kind of detailed kind of a thing, table is a good idea. So you can add a table and size these things. And in this table, I'm going to see my doctor. These are all our doctors. And we have some images for the doctor. So I'm going to take the PNG image and put it in the thing. Now, the image should come up as an image, but it comes up as text value because that's what that is. So we want to tell Power BI that, hey, whenever you see this, actually treat it as an image and pull up the image from internet. So to do that, we'll need to go into the table, select the doctors table, select the image column, and from the column tools ribbon, data category, set the category to image. So you have to select this column there and image URL. So you're telling Power BI this is actually not just some random text, it is actually a image URL. We should do this for SVG as well, even though we are not really using it in this particular setup. So once you do that, the images will come up nicely and you'll see the images of our doctors. All our doctors are kind of puns on famous people or US politicians. That's why you see an Amitabh Bachchan looking person there, is not really a doctor in our clinic. And this is how that looks. It looks all right. We can clean it up a bit later, but for now, let's go ahead and add other things. So we want to see how many patients each of our doctors have, and what is their inpatient percentage, and what is their DAP. I'm gonna change the columns slightly so we can see everything. That looks cool. I'm gonna take out the total row. This is not really needed because we have got the information there. So select the table totals off, and then now let's go ahead and quickly format. So I'm gonna go to image, search up for image, and let's make the images 24 pixels height, or maybe 32. That looks all right. And then we'll need to start with the colors. Coloring tables is actually quite painful. I mean, coloring everything in Power BI formatting is a pain because of the way they've designed it, but tables are extra special because there's just too many options. We'll start with the grid, go to options, and there is something called row padding. When you show detailed information like this, everything is touching each other and it kind of creates a sense of busyness in the report. It's a good idea to add white space. This is done by padding. So if you put like 5 padding, everything has a little bit of breathing room. You can go as high as 10 and that creates even more breathing room, but I think 5 would be a happy medium. And then I'm gonna go into the border and let's just color this that. Now let's start coloring the internal bits. So if I go to values and I think that looks all right. We'll need to turn off the wrap as well. So there's lots of word wrap going on. And column headers. So we don't need the background. We just want the text to be bold. All right, the borders are a little too thick, so I'm going to go into horizontal grid line and tone them down maybe like that. So everything looks good. The PNG underscore image kind of looks funny, so I'm going to select this, and you can double click on the column. Oops, sorry. You can double click on this area, whatever field. So I'm going to double click on PNG image, and from here I can just name this as IMG, or you can use Windows and dot keys together to open up the emoji keypad and pick an emoji that indicates what you're trying to show there. So I'll show the photo frame emoji there, and I'll just call this as patience, and that way you can kind of expand these columns out a bit. All right, I think that looks all right. The middle two ones need to be colored, but we won't worry about that for now. And you can put some other information here, or add a logo, or provide links, or set up some slicers to slice this data. But all in all, I'm really happy how this is turning out. I can select anything. I can see how things are with a specific doctor or gender or age group. You can select one at a time. You can hold down control and you can multi-select as well. So I can select these 5 doctors, for example. I can see how their trends are, what is their age spread is looking, where they are, and all of that quite cleanly in the overall summary as well. When you're done, you just click on these things again to reset the report. So that is how you can use Power BI to build reports. I know I've kind of maybe rushed in a few places, but I also want to kind of bring us to a good logical point rather than just leave you halfway through the session. So this is what I had in mind. I think we kind of nearly got there, except these icons. I didn't really do that, and we didn't calculate the referral percentage. I'll show you how that is done here, the referral percentage. It is similar to how we did the inpatient percentage. We calculate patient count where they're referred by anybody other than none, and store it in a variable called ref count, and then we divide ref count with overall patient count to get the referral count. So that's that. And then the icons are just applied on inside the table. Maybe I'll do that explanation in some other session in future. But here is our report. I'm very happy how this turned out. I hope you liked it as well. Let me know what you thought about it, and if you have any questions, let me know now. But if you have been one of those persons who's basically allocated only 80 minutes or 90 minutes for this, then you're free to go now. Thank you so much again for spending some time with me on this weekend, especially on Valentine's Day. But I hope you enjoyed it. I had fun talking. I'll hang around for a bit. I'll see if there is any questions or comments that need addressing. I had a setup here that lets me show the chat messages into the stream itself, but for some reason it wouldn't work. So right now I am unable to show the messages on the screen, but I will talk about them. I'll answer. So Philip Wist has been really helpful with some of these comments and helping you get the most of the live. So thanks, Philip. Do say thanks to him if you have been helped by his awesome work during today's live. FinBiz Mufad says, how to align text in the table? How much time do you have? So if you select the table, tables have a lot of different things. So you have got values. Values are essentially the internal part of table. Column headers is that one. And just to make things fun and confusing, they also have specific column and cell elements. Cell elements are any icons and bars and stuff that you put. Specific column is individual columns. So you would look in these 3 places and start aligning. The alignment options are not so great. So if you're one of those persons with OCDs when it comes to these kind of things, like I have obsession with perfect alignment. I'm sometimes really pissed with the option that we have. For example, a part of my mind is screaming right now as I'm talking, is why is this top aligned? This should be aligned in the middle of the cell. So should these things be. But I believe there is no way for us to vertically align these things. So we're stuck with whatever options that we have right now. Um, yeah, so you can do horizontal alignment for headers and things like that. If you do that, all of them will be aligned to center. Now we don't really want that. We want to do it for specific columns. So I would go in there and then I'll say specific column patients, apply to header and this, and these should be right aligned or left aligned or center aligned, whatever you want, you can do that. But there's no vertical alignment option here. These same alignment rules apply for matrix and table, but yeah, that's that. So if you're really feeling like frustrated with the lack of alignment, then you can try some other kinds of visuals, but the built-in ones don't have that many options, unfortunately. But again, every month they make some new feature changes, so they might add more alignment options like this. There was a time when none of these were there, so I'm positive that maybe sometime in future they'll have more alignment options for us. Wings 1726 says, very informative and nice session. Thanks for your live session. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Surya asks how to add date range slicers. So what you want is you want to put a slicer. So this is a slicer. So Power BI has lots of visuals that do the same thing. So people get confused when they look at this big thing and think, oh my god, there's so many, what do I use and all of that. But for date ranges, you're looking for this, but you can see that there's actually 3 other slicers to make our life interesting. So you've got a button slicer, some text slicer, and some other slicer here as well. But this is the one that you're looking for. So select the slicer, put that there, and in this slicer, drag your date field. Now, depending on how big the slicer is, it does need to be a little bit bigger, otherwise you can't see that. But there's that, and then you can just kind of slice this like that. Now you'll see that as if I go like that, this graph disappears. What do you think is happening? It's because this slicer is saying, give me from Christmas 2025 to 4th of January 2026. Whereas this graph is asking, I want the dates in the last 21 days, or from 17th of Jan or whatever, 10th of Jan or something like that. Now this and that are mutually exclusive. So whatever dates this want are not part of that. So that's why the slicer is controlling, and then there's nothing this graph can see. So sometimes when you have a slicer, you don't want the slicer to talk to everything. So you may want to customize what the slicer is talking. If you don't customize, the slicer talks to everything on the page. So for that reason, if I have a slicer like this, I would select the slicer, go into format, and there is a button called edit interactions. So click on that. This shows all the things that this slicer is interacting to, and there's basically multiple kinds of interactions, but slicers usually just have filter interaction. So it's either filters or it doesn't filter. So I'm going to select the slicer, click on edit interactions, and then I'm going to say on this visual there should not be any interactions, or none. And then I'll click on the edit interaction button again, so that thing goes off. So now the slicer has no impact on this. It's as if the slicer can do whatever it wants, and this graph will not change. It will be controlled by whatever is set in the filter panel. So this is something that you need to keep in mind when you're designing reports, to think about how users will work with this report and then accordingly design all the interactions, customize them and tweak them. There's plenty of fun little things that you could do there. Again, check out some of my other live streams or detailed Power BI videos on the channel to get some inspiration or ideas on that space. Right. Some people are asking if there will be a recording of this live. Yes, there will be a recording. It will be in the same page that you're watching. So when you want to rewatch it, or you want to kind of see the missed parts if you joined late, or if you're coming in now and watching it in the replay, yeah, it'll be there. It'll be on my channel. So do watch it and learn. The whole point of the channel is so you can learn, you can be awesome. So yeah, it'll be there. Usually for live streams, I kind of leave the recording or available, not available, ambiguous, because many times when you do things live, things can go wrong and they will go wrong sometimes. So I don't want to make a promise and then say, oh, sorry, we messed it up, so I'm not gonna keep the live on. But this time I'm so happy it all went very well, despite this being one of the first lives I'm doing in almost a year. And I'm very happy it went well. And yeah, it'll stay on the channel. Please watch it and share it with your friends. And if you have watched so far, don't forget to like this video and maybe bookmark it so you can come back to it later if you feel like there's a part of it that you need to watch again or revise or whatever. Job Kira says, can I use Power BI Service Web instead of desktop version for the complete exercise? I believe you can use web for almost all of the things. Some of the format or customization or measure related stuff might be, I don't know like how compatible the web version has become, but I believe it is very close now. So feel free to use it. And if you think, oh, there's this particular thing I can't do, leave a comment in the chat so people know what is it that you couldn't achieve online. And yeah, but for me, especially because I do quite a bit of more intense development work with Power BI, I find the desktop is my place. I can work in isolation without needing to work in browser, and everything is a temptation in a browser, right? I press Control T and I can go on Gmail or Reddit or something. So it's easier to just stay zoned in if I'm in my desktop. And I like that, it does feel faster and better with desktop. But yeah, if you have got Mac or something, then you don't really have Power BI desktop. So then you can use the online thing. Yeah, like Philip says, Power BI desktop is free to download. So yeah, download it. It's on Windows Store, so you can just go and grab it. And it does update automatically once a month. So whatever new versions are there, new features are there, you can grab and see them. All right. I think that brings us to a good closing point. I hope you have enjoyed the session today. And I want to personally once again thank you all for joining today, as well as watching some videos and learning from me all this time. If you do want to learn more, check out the video description for the sample file. Download it, follow along. That is the great way to learn. The dataset has fair bit of variation, and I'm hoping to revisit some of the healthcare concepts in future videos in 2026. So you'll see this data set played out a little bit more this year, along with the standard awesome chocolates data set. So yeah, check it out and play with it, and build something cool or fun and learn like that. But if you're feeling like, oh man, I still need more help, or I need a holding hand here, I do have courses that can help you. So feel free to check out my Power BI course. It is a self-paced course that should help you learn Power BI and kind of build seriously cool and awesome reports with your work and data sets. Yeah, people join this all the time, and they tell me constantly this is the best course and best investment they have done. So yeah, feel free to check it out, and if you think, oh, this is worth my time and money, please go for it. There's two options: advanced Power BI and the one that combines with my advanced Excel course as well. This is actually very excellent value, and yeah, I don't want to hard sell you or anything. You like it, and if you are looking for a place with that gives you really solid information without too much distractions, and kind of goes much deeper and gives you that kind of solid grounding you need to build awesome things with Power BI, this would be the course that you can get. So yeah, do check out the course. It's on my website. It's there in the sample file as well as a link. If you go and click on one of these links, my website logos, it'll take you to the course page. So feel free to check that out and grab that. When we are done, and when I have a chance to make a cup of tea and relax for a bit, I'll come back and I'll upload the completed file for you to kind of use it as a reference. But those of you who are learning, I think it's a good opportunity to just use the blank file and build it from there using what I'm showing, because that is the best way to learn in my opinion. So yeah, thank you so much. Thanks again for spending some time with me on the weekend, and I'll again catch you somewhere else in one of the lives, or maybe a regular video on my channel that comes up once a week. Thank you. Somebody asks, please answer my question, will AI replace my Power BI job? uh, who knows, but I feel like AI won't do any such thing. It is very powerful and very much useful, but at the same time it is almost like a bumbling idiot most of the times. But again, that's my opinion. You can go and do your own research. I feel like there's more companies who sell AI have an agenda to make you believe that it can do so many wonderful things, but you can see it for yourself. Try out some of the AIs and see what the capabilities are, and whether the claims that companies are making stand out, and do it. In any way, what I focus on is helping people do better things at their work. So sometimes if it is using AI, I'll help you with that. Sometimes if it is using tools like Power BI, I'll help you with that. I hope that is helpful. I have no real idea. I mean, everyone says that, but I don't believe it. Thanks everyone. I'm gonna end the broadcast for now.